How do additional protocols apply distinction in modern warfare? Imagine a battlefield where soldiers and civilians are mixed together. How do armies make sure they target only the fighters and not innocent people? That's where the additional protocols to the Geneva Conventions come in. These protocols, adopted in 1977, help clarify how the rule of distinction works today. The first protocol covers international armed conflicts, like wars between countries. The second protocol focuses on non-international conflicts, such as civil wars. Both protocols say that parties to a conflict must never intentionally target civilians or civilian objects. They can only attack combatants and military targets. This means that any attack must be aimed at people or objects involved in fighting, not at civilians or their homes. Protocol 1 sets detailed rules for applying this principle. It says combatants must take all feasible precautions to avoid harming civilians when choosing weapons and tactics. Indiscriminate attacks, which do not distinguish between military targets and civilians, are strictly forbidden. It also bans attacks that are expected to cause more civilian harm than the military advantage gained. Protocol 2 applies the same rules to non-international conflicts. It requires all parties, including non-state armed groups, to tell civilians apart from fighters. Attacks on civilians or civilian objects are not allowed. Acts of violence meant to spread terror among civilians are also forbidden. Both protocols say fighters must wear uniforms or other clear signs to be recognized. They cannot hide among civilians or pretend to be civilians to gain a military advantage. Using protected symbols like the Red Cross or Red Crescent is also regulated to prevent misuse. In practice, this means military planners must carefully identify targets and assess the risk of civilian harm before attacking. They need to ensure that the target is a legitimate military objective and that the attack will not cause excessive civilian damage. The protocols also requiring protecting medical personnel and facilities, which are civilian objects. They must not be targeted, and parties should search for missing persons and help civilians access essentials like food and water. Overall, the additional protocols strengthen the rule of distinction by making sure that parties to a conflict always tell civilians apart from fighters and avoid harming innocent people. This helps keep the conduct of war as humane as possible and protects those caught in the middle of fighting.